Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Shri Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Govardhari Ki Jai. Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tasmin prasanne sakala shisham prabho. Kim durlabham tabhiralam lavatmabhi. Ananya dristya bhajatam guhashaya. Swayam vidhate swagatim paraparam. Tasmin prasanne sakala shisham prabhav. Kim durlabham tabhiralam lavatmabhi. Ananya dristya bhajatam guhashaya. Swayam vidhate swagatim paraparam. Govinda. 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 Dulavam tabiralam gramabhi. Ananya dristya bhajatam guhashaya. Swayam vidhate swagatim paraparam. There we go. When you guys want to Tasmin prasane sakala shisham prabho. Kim durlabham tabhiralam lavatmabhi. Ananya dristya bhajatam guhashaya. Swayam vidadhe swagatim paraparam. Tasmin prasanne sakala shisham prabho. Durlabham tabhiralam lavatmabhi. Ananya drishya bhajatam guhashaya. Swayam vidyate swagatim paraparam. Tasmin prasane sakala shisham prabho. Kim durlabham tabhiralam lavatmabhi. Ananya dristya bhajatam guhashaya. Swayam vidhate swagatim paraparam. Anyone else? Tasmin prasanne sakala shisham prabho kim durlabam tabiralam lavatmabi ananya drisya vajatam. Thank you. Swayam vidhate swagatim paraparam tasmin, unto him, prasanne, being pleased, sakala ashisham, of all benedictions, prabho, unto the Lord, kim, what is that? Durlabham, very difficult to obtain, tabihi, with them, alam, away, lava atmabhi, with insignificant gains, ananya drishya, by nothing but devotional service, bhajatam, of those who are engaged in devotional service, guha ashayaha, residing within the heart, swayam, personally, vidhate, executes, swagatim, in his own abode, paraha, the supreme, param, transcendental. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nothing remains unachieved when the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased with someone. By transcendental achievement, one understands everything else to be insignificant. One who engages in transcendental loving service is elevated to the highest perfectional stage by the Lord Himself, who is seated in everyone's heart. Please repeat. Nothing remains unachieved when the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased with someone. By transcendental achievement, one understands everything else to be insignificant. One who engages in transcendental loving service is elevated to the highest perfectional stage by the Lord Himself, who is seated in everyone's heart. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 10.10, the Lord gives intelligence to the pure devotees so that they may be elevated to the highest perfectional stage. It is confirmed herein that a pure devotee who constantly engages in the loving service of the Lord is awarded all knowledge necessary to reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For such a devotee there is nothing valuable to be achieved but the Lord's service. If one serves faithfully, there is no possibility of frustration, because the Lord Himself takes charge of the devotee's advancement. The Lord is seated in everyone's heart, and He knows the devotee's motive and arranges everything achievable. In other words, the pseudo-devotee who is anxious to achieve material gains cannot attain the highest perfectional stage because the Lord is in knowledge of his motive. One merely has to become sincere in his purpose, and then the Lord is there to help in every way. Om Jnana Timidandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So nothing remains unachieved when the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased with someone. So this statement is clarified in the purport that it's not so much that when one becomes a devotee, he achieves everything, materially speaking. So when it says here that nothing remains unachieved, doesn't mean that when one, it doesn't necessarily mean that when one is pleased, has pleased the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or when the Lord is pleased with one, that you naturally achieve everything, that you become the greatest and the richest and the most famous, etc. It doesn't mean like that necessarily, although it can be. But what it means is clarified by Srila Prabhupada in the purport here, that and even in the verse itself, that by transcendental achievement one understands everything else to be insignificant. By transcendental achievement. So what is that transcendental achievement? Krishna says that Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvata Tyaktva puna jamanaiti mameti sojuna. This transcendental achievement means achieving pure love for God. It means being resituated in one's transcendental position as the pure servant of the Lord and as a pure soul that has nothing to do with material world. This is actually the situation. As given in the Bhakti scriptures, the actual nature of the soul, the actual nature of consciousness, Jivara Sarup Hoy Krishnara Nitya Das, that the actual nature of all of our ultimate existence, who we are beyond the coverings, beyond the identities of this body, of being belong to a particular country or a particular race or a particular belief or a particular religion or anything. These are all external things. But the ultimate identity of who we are, according to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Bhakti scriptures, is that we are a infinitesimal, minute, ecstatically loving servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's our position. And we have nothing to do with this material world. We don't have necessarily, we can use the material world, we can be in the material world. Sometimes it's said we should be in the material world but not of the material world. And we're in the material world mostly due to our own desires and our own karma. We've come here from that plane of perfection. We wanted to have this dream of what it would be like for us to be the Lord, to take service from people, Krishna says in Gita, Bhaktarang Jagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatva Shanti Mrichati. That in this world we want to think that we're the Lord, we're the enjoyer, this is the bhava, or this is the experience that we've come to this world to get. Bhaktaram as the enjoyer, Sarva as the Lord, to be the head of our household, our company, our artistic band or whatever it is. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, the Lord. And then Suridam Sarvabhutanam. That actually we are the friend. In other words, we can actually help other people. We can, by our great benedictions, we will help other people and so forth. But Krishna says, Gyatva Mam Shanti Mrichati. Krishna says you should know that it's Him who is all these things. These are the things we come to the material world to try to experience. But the Bhakti Shastras are telling us that this is a dreamlike state. This is a dreamlike state. And that our actual state is as an eternal servant of the Supreme Spirit who has a personality as well as being Supreme Brahman. He has a personality. In Srimad Bhagavatam, second chapter of the first canto, which really lays out all the major points of the Bhakti philosophy. It said there, Vedanti tattva vidam tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabhyate. That those who know the Supreme, those who know this Spirit that we are all made up of ultimately, they know that this Spirit comes in three features. Yes, there is the Brahman, Brahma eti, Paramatma eti, Bhagavan iti shabhyate. That there is a Brahman, there is a Supreme Spirit that is formless and is undivided and permeates everything. Yes, that is there. This is the Supreme Spirit that is described by the Vedantas, by the many different transcendentalists trying to achieve liberation from material entanglement. That is there. But also is there Paramatma iti. There's the Lord in the heart, is being described here in this very verse, right? Swayam vidhate svagatim paraparam guha ashaya, residing within the heart, right here in this very verse. This is the Paramatma feature. So not just undifferentiated Brahman, that is not the end, that's the beginning of real transcendental knowledge and transcendental experience. So this Paramatma is seated in everybody's heart. Upadrashta anumantascha. The Paramatma is arranging things, is giving the results of the karmas that all the living entities are executing different desires, getting reactions, able to fulfill their desires or not. This is all overseen by the Supersoul. Upadrashta anumantascha, the permitter, the overseer, the witness. As Krishna is explaining in Gita again. But then beyond all of these is Bhagavaniti. So this same Supreme Spirit that is worshipped by the Vedantists, that is worshipped by all transcendentalists, everybody trying to attain God consciousness, all the religions of the world, they're all worshipping this Brahman. In many philosophies, spiritual philosophies, they say you cannot know. Don't try to know God. Just know that He's beyond your conception. That's all you can know. Let's stop there. But that's the Brahman level. That isn't the end of knowledge. Vedanta, Veda means knowledge, and Anta means the end. So true Vedanta is the end of knowledge. It's not the beginning of knowledge. And the Brahman, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, is not the end of knowledge, it's the beginning of knowledge. Brahmeti Paramatma Bhagavan. So the Supreme Spirit, all-pervading, is there. Above that is the Super Soul that has a personal feature. It is a person who's giving results, not giving results. So when we pray to God, if we pray to a person, they're saying that in the wartime there's no atheists. When you're in the foxhole and there's bombs raining down everywhere, there's nothing, nowhere else for you to turn. There's no atheists there. Everybody's calling out, "My Lord, please save me. Please make that bomb fall 10 feet the other side, not here." Everybody's praying because they have nothing else. I have to depend on the Lord. This is Paramatma. But then beyond these two features, the ultimate feature, the actual Vedanta, or the actual end of knowledge, is Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the personality of Godhead. And unlike the first two features, which are primarily can be understood in relation to this material world, so the Brahman feature can be understood as neti neti, not this. It can be understood that it is not material interaction, is not material attraction, desire, all these things. It is not that, it is something else, is Brahman. Paramatma can be understood as the one who gives the material fruits, the one who can give liberation, who can give material desires. This is still to do with the material world. Bhagavan is nothing to do with the material world. Right? He's totally in his own world. Right? Sometimes people say that, "Oh, this guy, he's in his own world." And Bhagavan, he's actually in his own world. But this is the ultimate feature. Bhagavan is the Supreme Person in his time. What does he do? What is that Supreme Spirit? What is that all-pervading Spirit beyond everything else? What is that one who fulfills all desires? What does he do? Because we can understand that fulfilling the desires of everyone is more or less a functional activity, right? And if he's God, if he's the Supreme, surely his only job isn't just to fulfill everyone's desires. "Oh my Lord, please give us this day our daily chapati or daily bread." Surely that's not his only, that if he is the source, Janmadhyasya, as the Vedas are saying, surely he must have everything we have. We have this independent desire and activities and relationships in our little world. Surely he must have that. And this is Bhagavan. Bhagavan therefore cannot be understood by reference to this material world. Tata Sri Krishna Nam Adi Na Bhaved Grayam Indriya. Indriya means the senses, Grayam means to grasp. Bhagavan can't be understood in relationship to this world and our senses, because he has his own world, his own independent reality. That's what he does. Just like the judge might be at home, the judge might be in the court, and he's giving the function, he's rewarding, upadrashta anumantascha, he's giving that function of rewarding or punishing. But if you ask him what's the most dear to his heart, what does he like doing most, he'll say, "Oh, I love it on the weekend when I go home and my daughter's there and she brings her grandkids, and then we go out in the lake, we do some activities, whatever it is." That's his own activities, his family. So becoming a bhakti yogi means to becoming part of God's family. This is Bhagavan, means God's family, means what he does, what he likes to do, what is his pastimes, what is his pleasure, his lila. Becoming a devotee is such a exalted thing that it's actually becoming in the personal family of God. What can be higher than that? We're looking for family, we're looking for relationship and community and society in this world. There is some reflection of it there, flickering, temporary, imperfect. Something is there. But we're searching for that. And the reason is because that's the nature of our soul. We ultimately want that when we become actual devotees. One time, devotees were talking with Srila Prabhupada, and somehow it came up and the devotee said, yes, I'm a Vaishnava. And Prabhupada said, whoa, what? You're a Vaishnava? Vaishnava is something very, very exalted. We're aspiring Vaishnavas, we're aspiring to be devotees, doing devotional service, trying to make our service devotional, with the proper mood and focus. But this is a very, very exalted position. You can understand those who are trying to get merging into Brahman, trying to get free from all the material affections and material inebriations. Imagine the personification of that Brahman, what he's like as a person. Just his mere scent, his mere effulgence is worth trying for millions of lifetimes to do austerities to achieve that realm of deathlessness, of beyond the material tribulations. Just the scent of his atmosphere, the Brahman. But imagine what that person himself is like to know. That's what the Vaishnavacharyas are giving us. They're giving us the opportunity to know the Supreme Spirit and to become in his family, what he likes to do, what is his transcendental enjoyment. So therefore Prabhupada says here in the purport, for such a devotee there is nothing valuable to be achieved but the Lord's service. It's like Dhruv Maharaj, he was meditating, doing extreme austerities, and when the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifested to him, Lord Narayan manifested to him and said, what do you want? He said, well, I don't want anything, because now I've realized that all those things I wanted are like broken pieces of glass. But what you're giving, what I've found now is the most valuable diamond. When one devotee achieves the association of the Lord, he understands that anything else is nothing valuable to be achieved. One understands everything else to be insignificant. And one who engages in this service is elevated. Why? Because, explained in this verse, he's elevated to the highest affectional stage by the Lord himself. By the Lord himself. Right? So what is the power of Bhakti Yoga we can see? The other forms of yoga, Hatha Yoga, Jnana Yoga, mystic yoga, to a large extent they depend on our own efforts to control the senses, to control the mind, to control the life affairs. They're largely dependent on our own effort, the effort of the yogi himself or herself. But the power of the bhakti yogi is that by going directly to the root of the issue of this conditioned life, and that root of that issue is addressing this point, Jiva Rasrupa Hoy, Krishna Nitya Das, that we are actually an eternal servant of the Supreme. We're not meant to be the master of this material world. But getting immediately to the root of that, through the process of chanting the Lord's holy names, the soul becomes realigned to its eternal nature, and in this situation, the Lord Himself helps. The Lord Himself helps. Prabhupada expands on this more in the purport here by saying that one who constantly engaged in loving service is awarded all knowledge necessary to reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is Bhagavad Gita 10.10. Yesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti parvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. Krishna says that He gives the intelligence, and not the intelligence to be the Lord of the material world. He gives the intelligence of how to come back to Him. Right? Dadami buddhi yogam tam. Buddhi yoga. So He doesn't just say buddhi. Buddhi yogam. That intelligence which is linked to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Dadami, He gives buddhi yogam tam, yena mam, by which mam means me, upayanti, can come, te means they. Krishna is explaining that He gives that intelligence by which we can come to Him, by which we can reconnect with Him. To who? Tisham satata yuktanam. Yuktanam again means connected always, satata always. Bhajatam, who worships Him, priti purvakam. Priti means affection, love. One who worships the Lord in love attracts the Lord. Attracts the Lord. The Lord is ajita. He cannot be conquered by anything. But He can be jita. He can be conquered by the love of His devotee. His devotee can conquer Him by love, not by force. He's the ultimate force. Force cannot conquer. The most powerful. But love can. This is the mystical guya is used here in this word too. Guya ashaya. Guya means Raja Vidya Raja Guyam. It's the most secret, it's the most confidential. This is the open secret. The acharyas are giving it everywhere. But it's very difficult, very rare that someone actually takes up this secret. That the secret is to love the Lord, to try to love the Lord, to understand who is the Lord, what is His nature, how to serve Him. And then the Lord Himself helps the devotee. And to finish up on one last point, Prabhupada makes here in the purport, that therefore their sincerity is all that's required, and therefore concurrently, if that sincerity is not there, the Lord does not give His help. As Prabhupada says here, in other words, the pseudo-devotee who is anxious to achieve material gains cannot attain the highest perfectional stage because the Lord is in knowledge of his motive. Right? So pseudo means pretending. A pseudo-devotee, or someone who's pretending to a devotee. Why are they pretending to be a devotee? Because they're anxious to achieve material gains. We might think, well, how can anybody be a devotee? We might think, well, I'm full of desire to achieve material gains. And that's natural. It's natural to have material desires in the material world. But if we're trying sincerely to be a devotee, we will take the advice of people and we'll sincerely try to apply the process. And we'll be honest about what is our position. And keep the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to attain love for Krishna. Always keep that in the front. That is the ultimate goal. But if someone is just, really is just, as Prabhupada said, a pseudo-devotee, anxious to achieve, cannot achieve the highest perfectional stage, because the Lord is in knowledge of his motive. So it all comes down to motive, desire, what is our in bhakti, it comes down to what is our actual motive. Therefore it's a very subtle form of yoga. It cannot be seen necessarily by people who are not practicing it. It cannot be seen. What is that motive? What is that bhakti? Because it's very, very subtle. It's not just to do with the bodily mind or airs, bodily airs or the mind. It's actually to do with the spirit soul. So I'll stop there because I want to leave some time for questions, or if there's any questions. But this is very nice part of Srimad Bhagavatam, appearance of Lord Varaha. Is there any comments or any questions from anyone? Excuse me. No? Yes, Isabel? Can we have that? Hang on, we've got Dr. Mike is on his way.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for the class, Deva.
Hey, bro. You're welcome.
Just on that last sort of section you were talking about with the pseudo devotee.
Yeah.
What about navigating, finding a balance? Because you are still here in this material world, and then you take to the process, it's like I can only speak for myself here when I say this, but it's almost as if there's an internal war that's happening, and it's quite intense sometimes, and it's like one's trying to be more than the other. And there's this sincerity, trying to be sincere, and then it's the desires trying to be fulfilled. How does the balance come in?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question, because it gets to the heart of how to practice bhakti yoga. The thing is, as Prabhupada says here, they cannot attain the highest perfectional stage because the Lord is in knowledge of their motive. So it comes down to our motive. It doesn't come down to what we are able to externally manifest so much. That may have more to do with our own karma previously. Someone may be able to be very renounced in the beginning. Someone may be able to learn so many scriptures in the beginning. Someone may be able to talk in a very amazing way about Krishna in the beginning. But that is not being described here as what's actually important. What's actually important is the motive. Once my spiritual master Japataka Maharaj, he said that if people, in the beginning, and the beginning means we're all in the beginning, after 20, 30 years, we're still in the beginning. If we actually understand the end of being an associate of Krishna and what that means and what that level of consciousness is, we know that after 30 years we're still very much in the beginning. But when we're in the beginning of the beginning, when we're really in the beginning of the beginning, my Guru Maharaj said that if somebody is struggling, then that's a good sign, right? If they're struggling, it's so hard, my God, to actually try to give up this long-held desire to control and enjoy the material world and actually try to serve, give my service mood to Krishna, to the Lord. It's really hard. Because it's really hard. It's really hard. And if somebody's struggling and finding it really hard, that's a really good sign that they're actually doing something. If somebody's everything's so wonderful, yes, I can serve in Krishna. Every day I just wake up and I just love Krishna so much, and I just want that's not necessarily a good sign. because it is very difficult. And the reason, as we were saying in the class, Bhakti Yoga is difficult is because it does get to the actual root of the problem, which is that we have come to this dream reality to try to be the enjoyer and the controller over millions of lifetimes. So it's a deep-held habit, and it's a deep-held faith that we put in this material world, that this world's going to make us happy. We've put our faith in that for millions of lifetimes. So just contemplate that. If we contemplate that, I think, wow, that's really hard to give up a million lifetimes of habit. You see, when people start smoking, generally people hate it. They can't stand it. It's a horrible thing. It's disgusting. But then due to everybody else is smoking, then after a little while, oh yeah, it's good. And then it becomes a habit. And after 20 years, 10 years, it's hard to give up because they become habituated. But how hard is it to give up a habit that you've had for a million lifetimes? So, yes, it's very difficult, but that's a good sign, and it is, what did you call it? An internal war? Something like that? It is. That's called bhakti. Yeah, that's what it is. But it's, as Prabhupada said, it's the motive. So our motive before we've come to bhakti, before we have any, spiritual, real spiritual desire, our motive is just to be successful in the material world. And then we realize, wow, I could be completely successful and still, first of all, I'm not going to be happy. Second of all, it's going to be taken away from me, and next life I'll have to come and start all over again to try to achieve a process that's not actually making me happy anyway. So we realize that. But we come to before we are sincerely taking the process, our motive is just to be successful in the material world. That's what it is. And then when we hear about it, we say, oh, okay, I've understood to some degree that that's not going to make me happy. There's this other motive that is going to make me happy. And gradually we feel that happiness, right? When we chant, when we actually are in that situation of just trying to serve Krishna, trying to love the Lord, trying to be in that position, it's very blissful. It's very nice. And everything else fades away in insignificance, as this verse is saying. But we just have to keep that motive. We just have to keep coming back to that. I know it sounds kind of like hard work, but it is hard work. It's hard work giving up an addiction. Sometimes I give the example of an aeroplane. Like an aeroplane flying between here and Sydney, 99% of the time the plane is not headed towards Sydney. Because when you're up there, there's so many wind and airs going this way and that way and whatever, and they're continually readjusting. Like they point the plane towards Sydney, but there's a crosswind, so then they're headed that way. If they just kept pointing there, they'd get off. They have to go, oh no, we have to adjust. No, we have to adjust. So they're continually adjusting against the currents and the wind. Same with the ship. So that's what we're in. We're in this ocean or this air of the material world that's around us, but it's also within us. It's 1 million or 10 million or 10 billion lifetimes of our own conditioning, of us, stealing from someone 10 lives ago, or us giving some charity 5 lives ago, or whatever. All of these things are coming to us. Bad, good, suffering, it's all coming within us and without us. We're in this constant thing. So we're constantly in a state of flux. And the material world is in a constant state of flux. And that's one benefit you get from having a really being in a steady situation. Being in a steady situation in Varnashram, in your ashram or occupation, whatever, that you understand the material world is completely in a state of flux, always. And so we just have to keep coming back to that motive, and don't worry that every morning We wake up and it's like, our mind will tell us, oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. That's a million lifetimes conditioning talking to us. And that's the addiction of material enjoyment. But the balance you talk about is we should, the positive or a progressive way to deal with material desires is to see how our particular nature of desire and so forth, how can that be connected to Krishna? That's Rupa Goswami's core teaching. So it's not so much there's the material and there's the spiritual. Now in the beginning it is like that, because taking intoxication and killing animals, it just covers you over so much that you cannot understand Krishna. You just have to stop that. You can't do those grossly violent things to yourself and others. Okay, so that is black and white. But once you're actually situated and following the principles, then it becomes not so much this or that, it becomes, all right, is this a desire that I can just ignore? Or is this a desire that I have to say, how can I engage that in Christian service? In the beginning, we just ignore. That's in the beginning, we just sweep the temple floor. And generally it's such a relief in the beginning that we're like happy to just sweep the temple floor, because we just come from out there and it's like, whoa, this is so much nicer than out there. But as we go on, we look at our own conditioning, we look at our desire and say, all right, this I can use. We have a real desire to teach or something like that. It's like, all right, let me teach for Krishna. Let me try to engage this way of doing in Krishna consciousness. I like to cook. I like to make amazing things and please people with, okay, so let's do that. Let's cook for the deities and then please the devotees with our cooking. So then it becomes how to engage those in Krishna service. And then it becomes much less of a tug of war. It's like this or that, because we're engaging all of our being, mind, body, and spirit. And if we're doing that nicely, then it's not such a tug of war, that internal war. It's not like this or that. It becomes, all right, there's this, how am I dealing with that? How am I dealing with this? How am I engaged in that? And the result is seen. We see the result. When we're not applying it properly, we see, oh, I've got all these material ideas and whatever coming. Well, I mustn't be applying this process. What's happening? We have to contemplate. But if we're in that it's just there's this and that, then we can see there's also a third alternative, which is, this, I have strong desire to do that, but then there's Krishna and they're different. They're not different. In the progressive form of bhakti, the nature of the individual is engaged in devotional service. Yuktam vairagam, technically. So, I mean, it's a huge question. It's like you could, give a seminar every day for a month or something. But there's something. Yeah. All right. Anything else? 1 more minute, Nandu.
You were saying like how Bhakti Yoga is the process out of all the other yogas. It addresses the issue of our eternal occupation, understanding we're the servant, and if you were saying we're here to try and enjoy, be the master of all we survey. If the question is, if a newcomer happens to hear that, we're fallen down from the spiritual world because we're trying to lord it over and be the master of all we survey. It might be a bit like, and I've had that experience, and they're like, I'm not trying to be the master, I'm just living my life, I'm not,
yeah.
what's the big deal? I'm not, I would
just live my life. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Is,
like
is
a
your question
subtle-
like, what do you say to them, or
Yeah.
like,
How do you?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If somebody's responding with that, it could be a symptom of like what you've said to them before. That's like, you know, if there's, in other words, they're effectively solidifying their false ego to you. They're saying, oh, no, I'm just me, I'm doing me, and whatever, all those things that people say. Which means that their false ego is a bit threatened. So you've whatever you've said to them, you've sort of shaken them a bit, but they feel a bit like, oh no, I need to just say that this is just me, there's nothing wrong with what I'm doing, or something like that. So, I mean, I think what we see Prabhupada in the beginning, I mean, classes is more general and more impersonal, not impersonal in that sense, but more, it's not directed at a person. So in a class you can say, this is the tattva. No. But when you're talking to someone one-on-one, then it's really like, what you say is for them, right? And so if you say, you know, oh, you've just come here to try to be the Lord of everything. It's like, most of us will go, I'm not a bad person, I'm a good person. Like, so, but you know that when you're talking to them, that's the situation. But it's just a way of, it's just becoming more practiced at presenting in a way that doesn't make them have to establish their false ego. Like maybe focusing more on like the beauty of being a servant rather than that you're trying to be the Lord, like especially when you're one-on-one. I think if you look at what Prabhupada's if you look at Prabhupada's conversations with individual people and his classes, there's huge difference, mostly very big difference. And those, what is it, that Following True Prabhupada, those videos we watched, that devotees are always saying that, how, you know, accommodating and humble and understanding, and Prabhupada was one-on-one. But then when he was the charion, you know, giving the thing, it was, you know, so there's also that aspect as well. I don't know. But a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. That's that saying. So it's, yeah, you can. I think that's. I was preaching to one guy, a few months back. I'm preaching to him. I was talking to him about this philosophy, and I was saying that this exact point, how it realigns you with the soul, and that's the beautiful position of being in service. Like how beautiful that is. Like even in this material world, you know, people might run a huge company, but they love to say, "Oh, I do service, I do volunteering work," you know. And you see, that's the juice in their life actually, is pleasing someone else. How much juice is there in pleasing yourself? And yes, I'm, you know, it's a very hollow pleasure, like compared to, you know, yourself. You know, you're serving people and help. You know how nice it is, right? So you can share that with them. Then they're attracted. It's like, wow, it's amazing. This is actually our position. And then you can just weave in, you know, and that's why we're all suffering in this world, because we're trying to actually become the Lord and control and everything, and we're not meant to be. That's not who we are. We're meant to love and serve and something like that. So, but locking horns and that doesn't really. All right, some thoughts. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare